What's up everybody, this is Yasin Nizami and you are watching The Passionate Realtor. In this video, we are going to cover the latest statistics from Tribe with regards to the GTA market for the month of August, and then some of the stats came out from Stats Canada with regards to the economic numbers. We're going to cover that, as well as some of the economic promises that the political parties are making at the edge of the election campaign. So we are going to touch upon that as well. Let's dive in. So last week, Stats Canada came out with some economic numbers with regards to the Q2 performance in Canada. And believe it or not, the performance was not expected because the economists were forecasting almost 2.2% growth in Q2. And in contrast with that, the economy actually dipped. So the Q2 GDP growth was actually negative 1.1% on an annualized basis. So which is basically not a good news for pretty much everybody in Canada, where we were expecting the economy to grow and then getting out of this pandemic-driven lockdown and poor economic performance, but the economy actually shrank as opposed to growth because from the last 3 quarters we were seeing the growth quarter over quarter, but this is the first time since Q2 last year when the economy actually shrunk in the negative territory. Now there were two reasons that were noted, that actually pulled the economy down. Number one was housing. So as you know, the housing contributes to 13% of the GDP growth in Canada. Believe it or not, that's one of the major pillars of the Canadian economy. And as the housing slowed down in the last few months, it actually also pulled the economy down as well. So when we look at the total breakdown of the statistics in terms of how much housing contribute into the GDP growth in the Q2, 17% housing investment went down in Q2, which actually pulled the GDP growth along with it. Now you can see people talk about housing crash, and then the politician will actually come in and do something and make some changes and bring policies to bring the prices down. How is it going to be possible if your economy is heavily dependent upon the housing sector? You cannot do that, right? It's a common sense. If your housing is a major part of the GDP growth, you cannot crash or you cannot crush that vertical or sector, because that will definitely hurt the overall economy. Now, because of the negative GDP growth, I think Bank of Canada will review their policy in terms of whether they're going to further taper their bond purchasing program, i.e. QE, or should they also increase the interest rate at some point, because the economic conditions doesn't really lead us to tapering the bond purchases and reduce the interest rate, because that will further decline the economic growth rather than moving forward. And the other thing I want to touch upon is the global supply chain issues. If you look at the supply chain issues are not transitory. When we heard Bank of Canada's governor saying hey, inflation is transitory, this is because of base year effect and the global supply chain issue, but those issues doesn't seem to be temporary, because if you read the news blogs and international news, the global supply chain is continuing to be deteriorating, not only because of the rising prices of the raw material, but also the overall shipping cost is actually going up. And it has various reasons, lack of, empty containers, because the ships actually leave the container, they cannot get those empty containers in time to get back to their destination. Because of the Delta variant, the shipping industry is struggling with the lack of employees or lack of workers. As a result of that, it is impacting the shipping cost overall, as well as the manufacturing industry, where also, because of Delta variant, they're struggling with workforce, and having people to work together in closed environment. This is definitely hampering their manufacturing growth, and hence, one of the reasons of the supply chain issues with regards to delays, increasing prices in terms of the raw materials, shipping prices going up, which is also doesn't basically help at all in this situation. Because of all these things, you can see that the economy is really in bad shape, and the light of the end of the tunnel is further out. Like, it's a long way down for any country to get back into the pre-pandemic level economic conditions, because the environment is not healthy. You have rising shipping costs, you have rising raw material consumer goods prices, that is pushing the inflation further up, and then the GDP growth is shrinking because there is not much activity happening in the economy. And when the housing is depending upon, if that slows down, guess what, this is also going to pull with GDP growth further down. So the situation is not good, guys. I'm just giving you some of the facts, figures in terms of how the economy will move forward and how these political parties are going to fulfill their promises. I mean, when I'm looking into their political plan in terms of housing, I mean, some of those promises seems too good to be true. For example, they said everybody is going to crush, foreign buyers, and they will temporarily ban foreign buyers from acquiring property in Canada for 2 years, and they will increase the tax, 20%. Well, there is already a 15%, foreign buyer tax in Ontario as well as in BC as well. How much impact it has brought into the market in terms of slowing the market down? Pretty much nothing, right? Nobody has the accurate data in terms of how many transactions are actually happened by the foreign buyers. But I think if you look around, if you do some Google research, you will find it's hardly between 3 to 5% of the total transaction that is actually happened or purchased by the foreign buyers. The majority of chunk of the transaction is still made or driven by the local Canadians or local permanent residents in country. So I think they are making a scapegoat this time again, guys, because we have seen those high tax and the foreign buyers came into this country previously. It did not do any difference at all. The other thing, I was looking at the promises like they are going to build 1.4 million houses in next 4 years. So everybody knows that the supply issue is the major concern in this country, and this is not basically a federal issue, it's a municipal issue, because we don't have enough houses being built within the short amount of time because of bureaucracy, because of the overall process in terms of getting the planning approved, get the funding approved, getting all the permits and done. This takes almost 2 to 3 years of process in terms of getting the project approved, like from the concept to the point when you start building the project. I'm talking about the condo projects, and by the time you finish it, it's basically a 6-year process. When the government makes it so difficult for construction builders to build these housing, you can imagine, right? There's no way we can accelerate the house building in this country. And when these political parties are saying that they're going to build 1.4 million houses in the next 4 years, just imagine that means around 400 houses per year. Our total capacity in terms of building new houses in Canada is somewhere around 200,000 homes. If you look at this chart, that shows you the quarter by quarter performance in terms of how many new houses we have built in the history of last 20 years. You can extrapolate and average it out, how many houses we built actually within a year. So when they say 1.4 million houses over 4 years, that's too difficult to execute, guys. Like, all these parties are making these false promises to attract voters and using as an election tactic. I have very less hopes in terms of how they are going to execute those plans when they come into the power. Now, let's take a look into the TRAP statistics that came out for the month of August. You can see the housing seriously declined in terms of number of transactions, 20% drop compared to last year, same time around. And if you look at the month over month as well, you can see 2.7% decline in terms of the number of transactions. But if you look at the average price, it's still going up, 12.6%, price difference compared to last year this time around. And month over month comparison, you can see it's still 2.4%. So when you see the market is going down, it's the number of transactions, it's the volume that is going down. But the average price for a consumer, for a normal buyer, it is still going up. And the main reason is the lack of inventory, guys. We are seeing historic low inventory levels right now. You can see the listings compared to last year, this time 43% down, 43%. That's significant, guys. And the sales to new listing ratio, you can see it's still 23%. So as the new listing comes around, they quickly get absorbed. The houses are getting sold like within few days, matter of few days. So the market is still very tight in terms of finding the buying opportunity, because it's still a seller market. Because if you're a seller, you don't have to reduce the price because you are the only one of the few sellers in the market who are actually selling house. So market's still very competitive. Now, if you look at the condo statistics, you can see huge volume in terms of transactions, 155% compared to last year this time around. And the price, the average selling price of a condo this time went up 10% compared to last year. And again, the listing is still very, very high compared to last year. So there's a huge difference in terms of listings between single family homes and condos. Condo listing still too much, 64% rise compared to last year, are getting absorbed quickly within no time. Rentals, the rents are still low compared to last year, but if you look at the number of transactions showing a huge demand, so there's a huge activity happening in the downtown core condo market. You can see the market is shifting in terms of the number of volume, and it has pulled down the GDP growth for the country because it's a heavy part of the economic growth. But at the same time, we don't have enough inventory that is keeping the price still up. I'm not sure how these political parties are going to execute their plan because some of their promises are way more aggressive and then sound too good to be true to me, to be honest. Don't put a lot of hopes on these promises, guys. This is I'm saying that maybe they can bring some new programs, new incentives for first-time home buyers, make it easy for buyers to get mortgage approved and then purchase the program using those supported plans from the government like CMHC offer programs. But I don't think this is going to make any impact in terms of making housing affordable because we don't have enough houses. We cannot build a lot of houses in short time because of the bureaucracy and the longer planning processes, as well as the construction cost, which has going up significantly. Raw materials going up, lumber, steel, anything that is being used in some sort of a manufacturing or construction, it is going up because of rising shipping cost, lack of workers working in those manufacturing factories because of pandemic, and this Delta variant is making even more difficult, and that is going to continue, guys, until we completely get rid of this virus and then come out of this pandemic driven economy. Until then, we will see these challenges going forward, and this will not make our lives easy. That's all I have for this week. And if you have any questions, comments, put them down below. I'll be more than happy to understand your perspective, your point of view as well. So until my next video, take care.